Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry I did not have a midweek video this week, so don't worry. I will do my video tomorrow for when you only have half an hour. I do have it all planned out. It just got a bit busy with this being the last week of school at home, and all the kids are back on Monday, and I'm so excited to get some normality back and get back to my crafting in my craft room. So today I wanted to have some fun. I thought I'd start out by doing a bit more of a talky video. It's Saturday night crafting, and I hope you're all joining me for it. So I thought I would share with you what you kind of need to gather if you want to gather that now, and then you can pause my video and then get started with me. I'll probably have forgotten several things along the way, so forgive me when you have to pause it again. But today we're going to use some brushos. These are new in my craft stash. I've toyed with them forever and really have not been bothered to get them, and then I've been seeing other techniques, and I've been using the shimmer powders, which by the way I did get more. I tried the Nuvo ones as well. I cannot stop with these sort of explosion-y powders, and these ones I've trialed out and they are gorgeous and really lovely and brilliant, but again very similar to the Cosmic Shimmer ones that I shared with you last week. They don't stay on the paper, they rub off really easy. So this is my little sample sheet from those, and you just like look, the color, everything just comes right off the instant you touch it. So you have to set it with hairspray again, which is a bit gutting, but the explosion powders from Pretty Get Gritty never ever needs setting, so that is fantastic. But I did want to share that with you, that I got some more and you'll see these coming up in videos because I cannot stop playing with them. So I decided that actually I wanted to get some that don't have the shimmer in them. I'm obsessed with glitter, I'm obsessed with shimmer, but I need some that don't have it in order to do some other techniques and some other ideas I've had. So I've got my brushos tonight. You can use, if you've got re-inkers, water-based re-inkers, you can use those. Not things like VersaFine, anything that's a pigment ink will not work. So make sure it's water-based. But anything that you've got that's sort of concentrated, that's what we want to use, because we're going to make a spray out of it and dilute it down. So I'm going to use the brushos because I've been really wanting to play with those. But you can use re-inkers if you've got that, or anything else water-based and concentrated. This is a funny story. So this is a big old bag of rock salt, and that's what we're going to use tonight. If you've got normal salt, just use normal salt. Basically, I got a little keen, and my husband and I really like this sort of pink Himalayan salt, and I've got one of these sort of salt grinders, and it was running low, and I was at the shop and they had these for only £1 a bag, and so I got 3. And this is all we've used in nearly 2 years. So it's come into my craft room. So I'm going to use some of it today. Not much, but some. I will pour it into a dish so that I'm not then sticking my dirty hands into this bag, and then I can put this back in my kitchen at some point. So get some salt, some rock salt, or whatever you've got in your stash. Grab that. We'll need some water to mix it, and then just regular cardstock. We're just gonna use regular cardstock today. You can use watercolor if you've got it, but I want it to be cheap and I want to do a whole bunch of backgrounds, so I'm just going to use normal cardstock. Let's get started in making our sprays. So I've got 5 already made. I just had to count there for a second because I was like, oh wait, maybe that's 6. So not with it. Okay, so I've got 5 made already. I'm going to make one more with you. This is a box of 12 colors, so obviously I will make all 12 up at some point, but I just want to get cracking and I want to play and I want to craft. It's the weekend, it's my time. So I thought I would do the one that's called Scarlet and do that with you, just to share with you what I do. This is super duper duper concentrated pigment. You don't need much at all. Be very careful when you're opening it, you don't chuck it across your desk. So you don't need much at all. All I'm going to do is take a palette knife. I would use like a teeny tiny spoon if I had one, but I've only really got a palette knife, so I'm just going to take a little bit. Make sure it's not too high on your spoon, because when you go to stick it in your bottle, it might just get caught on the top of it and then fall everywhere on your desk, and that's a mess. So I'm going to put about roughly 3 scoops in, and then I'm going to add in my water, and that's all we have to do because it dissolves into the water. It's It's basically like a powder form of watercolor. Now this is super concentrated, so you want to wipe that off and make sure you get it all cleaned off, or your next project will have red on it. Now, as I was saying before, you can do this with any of the other explosion-y kind of powders, so the Pretty Gets Gritty Explosion, Nuvo, or Cosmic Shimmer. You can do this technique with any of these as well. You just end up with lots of mica powder in there, and I don't want the mica powder because I want to stamp over it, and we're going to use the salt on it, and I just don't want the faff of the mica powder being in there, so I'm not using these for this technique. But you can do the same thing if you want to make a spray by doing the exact same thing by putting a few scoops into a spray bottle. Now I'm just going to take my spray bottle from my desk. Oh, I forgot to share with you, I've got this big old bag here. This I will try and link down below. I think I got it from Amazon. It might have come from AliExpress. It never hurts to have spare spray bottles. I have so many in my office, and I'm constantly loving trying out new things and making up sprays and things like that. I will do some alcohol techniques with you, and I'm going to share with you how to make alcohol sprays. So I just get a big old bag. I think this was 100, either 50 or 100 bottles, and they're just the little ones. I think they are 30 mils, and I just bought them in bulk because it was cheaper when you buy them in bulk, and it worked out to something like, I think it was like 10 pence, maybe less a bottle. So always worth buying in bulk if you know you're going to use them. And also the nice thing about these small bottles is that you don't end up wasting product because you're only making a small amount, which is really nice. So all I'm doing is just pouring in some water. Don't pour it all the way to the top, because then when you go and stick this in, it'll overflow everywhere and make a right mess. So I'm just sticking it in. I'm going to twirl that round while I'm sticking it in, just to kind of mix the powder off the bottom so it doesn't get stuck in my nozzle. And put the lid on nice and secure, and then just shake it. And it mixes super quick and super easy. Then I'm going to make up my little test sheet so that I can keep this in my box with my brushes so I know what each color looks like. So this one's Scarlet, and I will look at the bottle while I spell it, otherwise I'll spell it wrong. It'll be embarrassing. Alright, so there's my Scarlet. Now you want to protect your surface, and I would put down my mixed media mat, but what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to need to tape it to a surface, and my mixed media mat is silicone, so the tape does not stick to silicone. So I'm going to risk it and do it on my background mat here, and then I'll just have to replace it if I damage it. I keep getting a lot of questions from people, from various people messaging me saying, where do you get your wood from for your background? And this is just an IKEA computer mat. Let me see if I can pick it up a bit for you. So as you can see, it's just a plastic mat that you would put your computer on, and I bought it at IKEA really cheap. And then the stuff on the top is stuff that you can buy in any home kind of shop. It is a vinyl, a sticky back vinyl that you would use to redecorate your kitchen countertops if you want to change the look of them. So it's water resistant, a lot of things wipe off of it. And I've just stuck that down onto this mat, and then when this gets damaged and wrecked, I just peel it off and stick a new one on. I just like this background for filming. I feel like the light background makes it really nice and easy for you to see, and it doesn't have any reflection, I was gonna say capabilities. It doesn't reflect, so it's not like a glass mat where I have to be very careful of my lights and how it reflects and blinds you, basically. So that's what this is. If you're curious, I've had so many questions about it. Okay, so now all we're gonna do is do a little sample and just see what it's like. You could then, if you want, take a hole punch and punch a little sample out of the top of it and stick it onto your bottle if you want, and then that way you know exactly what's in there. So there we go, there's our Scarlet. And I'll set that to the side to dry. Just want to do a sample before I forget, and then I remember what I'm doing. Top tip if you're lazy like me, my water is getting low. I keep an empty bottle. This is not the original water, I've just filled it with tap water. And I just keep this empty bottle under my desk, and then when my sprays get low, I fill it up. My office is out in our garage, so I get a bit lazy with the amount of times I have to go back in and out the house, because obviously the loo's in the house, coffee's in the house and everything. So when I need to refill my spray bottle or I need a bit of water, then I just keep this bottle under my desk and I just fill it up. It's just my lazy way. So if you're kind of stuck in a room that's not convenient like I am, it's really helpful just to have a handy bottle of water under there. Okay, so I also went ahead and just quickly made an orange, just so that I could have the rainbow order and the rainbow colors. Now, it could end up being a pooey brownie muddy mess in the end. I'm going to try really hard not to, but I wanted to have these colors as my base colors. Now, you might want to wear gloves if you're really bothered about colors and staining, because these will stain your hands for a little while. And I'm getting really nice and colored, but I don't really care because I'm having fun and I'm getting crafty on a Saturday. Okay, so I've got all my colors ready, and we're going to go ahead and start making up some card backgrounds, and I'll show you how to make some cards. I also meant to mention that I did go ahead and just punch out of each of my sample pages and just glued them on with a little bit of glue, just because it was getting difficult to tell which one was which, because they're all quite close in, I mean, these two are quite close in kind of color. The blues are definitely close, and I just thought actually for ease, when I go to grab them, it'll be much quicker and easier if I've got those colors on the top. So I just went ahead and stuck a dot of each of the colors onto the lids, and then that way they're easy to grab. I'm getting started with a regular piece of cardstock. This is 350 GSM cardstock. I've got my rock salt, my table salt in those little bins ready to go. Grab some washi tape that I don't really care about to kind of tape down my piece of cardstock. If I don't tape it down, then what happens is it starts to curl when it gets wet. And so if I tape it down, it means that my cardstock stays flat and wet when it's wet, and that helps the salt to kind of have its effect on my picture. Now I'm going to start off with blue, yellow and red, and it's called ultramarine blue, so it's kind of almost a teal blue, and I'm just saturating the card with loads of it, making sure to shake it before I start because it does kind of set to the bottom a little bit, that color pigment. So I give it a good shake, spray it on, and the blue mixed with the yellow gets the green, the yellow mixed with the red gets the orange. And then I add my rock salt. Now, it's normal cardstock and it's totally absorbed it. It's dried completely instantly. So I'm going ahead and saturating it with water from my spray bottle. But I was a bit gutted because I was like, oh no, it's all absorbed before I could do anything. So I very quickly change pace. You can see I'm just giving it a dry so I can move on to the next one. And I change pace and I bring in the watercolor card, because that is the key every time, I think. You need the right color card, the right kind of cardstock for the right project. So I'm using this watercolor card from Arteza. It is my favorite. I've tried about 4 kinds in this past week just to see how I can compare, because this is expensive cardstock. It really is quite costly. And every time I just go back to this one, it is so good. It barely warps, it's nice and thick, and I just get such great results every single time. So again, I'm using the same 3 colors, and I apologize, my camera's gone a bit silly here, but you can see how vibrant, how different it is, and how that water is resting on the top, or the liquid is resting on the top. It gives me time to put my rock salt down before it dries and absorbs into the card. This is a few hours later. I've given it time to dry, and then I've come in with my heat tool as well, and I'm just going to remove that rock salt now. So I'm picking up my washi tape and pulling it off my card. I'll trim off those bits later on in the video. You'll see me trim off the edges so that we've got a nice clean edge. But I'm just going ahead and dumping that rock salt into my bin, and this is what we're left with. This is smooth cardstock now. There's no rock salt left on it, and this is the texture we get. It is so pretty. I'm really happy with how it goes. Now, the difference between watercolor card and regular card is so enormous. So here's the regular card. It's really warped and it's very pastel colored. So it's really kind of watered down. Even though none of it ran off, I dried it all. None of the color went anywhere. It just absorbed through that cardstock. You can see the back there a bit, that it's gone right through the cardstock. Whereas the watercolor card, it's just kind of stayed on the surface. So it makes such a huge difference if you look at what card you're using. If you're not getting the result you want, get out your cardstock and have a look at it. That watercolor card is so vibrant, and that's what I was going for. I really wanted bright colors today. I really love bright colors. If you want a more toned down look, you could use regular cardstock and you get that kind of pastel look on the right. So it really matters what card you're using. I thought I could just get away with just using plain old cardstock and being cheapo today, but actually I love the result of the watercolor card more, and so I'm going to stick with that for the rest of my cards. I'm going to go ahead and trim those edges off, make sure I get rid of all that white and have really nice clean edges. And I don't mind having that white there when I'm doing my cardstock. It just meant that my card got to dry flat, which is what I really wanted. And I'm going to cut it into some standard cardstock or card size bases. So normally what I do is half a centimeter smaller for each layer, and I'm going for 3 layers. So I've got this as my top layer, I'm going to have a backing layer, and then I'm going to have my card base as the final layer. So this is the size of a card base. You can see that I've got about a centimeter around all sides. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 3 of those card bases ready to go for my card panels, not card base I should say. I'm going to save every one of those scraps. I've got a little jar on my desk. That's where they all go. They're so amazing to keep hold of and so useful. Now this last piece was all red, and I thought actually I want to try and just do a panel down the front of the card. So I trimmed that one down a bit more so I could have kind of a chunk in the middle. So I've got my card fronts, I've got my scraps. I'm going to keep those scraps. They're going to be useful in the future. I thought I would use them this video and I didn't, but they go in my little jar on my desk and they'll be useful later on. I then get out all my sort of fun, gorgeous, glittery or shimmery or patterned backgrounds, and I always have a look and see if they would go with my cards and if I could use them as sort of a backing on my cards. Okay, so it's been several hours later, so this has been a long day of just playing off and on. My husband had to work a bit today for University Open Day, and I got distracted by some other things, and I've been leaving stuff to dry as well. So it is 1 o'clock, and you will be watching this probably in 2 to 3 hours from now, depending on how fast I can edit. So it's gonna be a late night for me, but that's okay. That's what Saturday nights are about. And I wanted to share with you some of the samples. So there's my hands, and they're probably only gonna get worse. And it's weird because I keep getting this like very salty taste in my mouth when I've been wiping these clean of the salt, because obviously it floats around in the air a bit. So this is the same as the one I did originally, but I used the fine salt on it. So you can see the texture. This is all the salt has been wiped off now. It feels bumpy, a little bit bumpy, just from the actual spray. But you get a lot of texture on there, and I've wiped all the salt off, so that's the texture left over from the fine salt. So quite a difference. So I've prepped my card bases, but that was the same one, same colors, but this was with the big grains and this is with the small grains. So it really diluted out the color. I sprayed just as much as before, but you can see I used the same colors, red, yellow, and blue, the sort of ultramarine blue. And it's really diluted out the color and made it quite a lot lighter. When I used the fine grain sand, it kind of just dispersed the color a bit more and stretched it out. So that's the difference between using the rock salt versus the table salt. And again, that was red, yellow, and the ultramarine blue, that one there. Then I went ahead and did the same. I used the purple and the blue. And I got these gorgeous textures here. You can see I did the rock salt on the left and the fine salt on the right. And those are kind of the results I got from those. Then I did the same 3 again, but on a smaller scale. So I pre-cut it down to be 5 by 5 inches. And I did the fine salt on that one, which I didn't leave it to dry enough. And when I was rubbing the salt off, I kind of got a bit of a smear. And that's the large rock salt. So overall, I think I prefer the rock salt to the fine salt. I think you just get a much more colorful look and a lot cooler of a detail, if that makes sense. I didn't manage any poo colors, by the way. There were no turd browns in any of my pictures. Woo! Win for Sasha! Then I did a graduated one where I went from blue to yellow to green. And did the rock salt on it. Oh, the other tip I found that I wish I'd mentioned right at the beginning was to get the most effect out of the rock salt was to spray, throw the rock salt on that color, spray, put the rock salt on that, spray, and put the rock salt on that. Otherwise it kind of absorbed into the cardstock really quickly. And all of the rest of mine have been done in watercolor card. So there's those 3 colors. Then on this one, I just used purple and red, and I just did some blotches and chucked that rock salt on. I love this one. This is probably one of my favorite ones just because it's totally my colors. I love how it all looks. So those are all the rest of my card fronts that I will play with and make up some more fun cards with at some point. I tend to keep a pot of cards next to my desk where I've got kind of my card bases ready to go in their sizes, or even just sheets like this. I've got a little pile for the sheets like that. You can see I've got one here that I've been chopping up and using from my Cosmic Shimmer powders, and I just keep them next to my desk, and when I kind of feel like I need a background, I'm running low on inspiration, I can just grab these and I'm ready to go. So it is worth doing more than you need and just kind of having some to the side if you want to have a quick card. Quickly go through how I put my cards together. I don't want to dwell on this bit too much because I really want you to see the end result, and the focus was on the technique today. So I've got my plain colored cardstock, which I'm just kind of having to play with to see which one will line up best. I make these little samplers up whenever I get new cardstock, and then that way I know what I'm doing and what I'm going for. So here is my little panel that I shared with you in the beginning. Now don't tell Alina, this is a new release that is not available yet. You can't find this just yet. It'll be out right away, so don't tell her I've shown you secretly before the release. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp this beautiful flower, which is from Jane Jill. This is also a new release that I found on Craftstash. It popped up in the new release section. I love clicking that button where it says new release. And I had to buy it. I bought 3 of them. I'm so excited. I love her designs and her stamps. So this is a technique I've shared with you before. I go ahead and stamp the image on my card front. I then glue my little fun panel on the front, which I've used that sort of edge die on. Those edge dies, by the way, are for DL or slimline cards. So they are meant to go along a really long card base, but they work beautifully on any kind of edge. So I've gone ahead and stamped my image, I've glued my panel on the top, and I'm going to stamp it again. And this time the image will just stamp on that panel because it's slightly raised, but it looks like one continuous image throughout the whole piece. So I love how that looks, and that was just kind of a refresher on how you do that little technique. Got the cute little border on the bottom. I completely smudged some of that brush show powder off of my card onto my white card base. It was so easily done and my fingers were so messy. So I'm using a rubber that has got a sand eraser on the bottom, and I'm just rubbing off that color that I've kind of let sort of get attached onto the card. That's the quickest, easiest way. And those are my finished cards. So I'm really happy with how they turned out. For this one, I used another new release, don't tell Alina. This is a gorgeous stamp set. I don't know what she's done, but her stamps have improved in quality, and they are still silicone, but they feel almost like a hybrid between photopolymer and silicone. They're a bit heavier to work with, and they stamp beautifully clear. So this is a new release. She sent me a couple new releases to try out before they went live. So don't tell her I've shown you before they've even gone on live. If I can, once they're live, I will link them down below for you. But until then, you've got to wait. Sorry. They were just too gorgeous. I couldn't not play with them. I am so in love with these stamps. This is all I did with this stamp set. I didn't do anything further. I'll stick a sentiment on later, but I did pop it up on some foam off my card base. Oh gosh, this one is also a new release from Alina. It's a beautiful sunflower stamp, and I thought this one had to be embossed. So I went ahead and used Alina's clear embossing powder and embossed over top of that image, and then added one of her dies, which is Thank You, on the top of that, and that was backed onto some gold cardstock and then onto some pearlescent black card, and I thought this turned out beautifully. My next card uses that new release from Alina for that die, and I went ahead and used that to trim the bottom of my little panel that is stuck on the front of the card. And then you saw this technique. I backed it onto some red card that matched from my Crafter's Companion pack, and that I finished it off with a little sentiment on the front. And my last card was using another stamp set from Jane Jill. This is another new release, and all I did was simply stamp it onto the front of that panel, add a little sentiment from my little sentiments box, and then finish it off with some clear Nuvo drops, which don't look clear in the video, but they do dry clear. They look a little bit off white, but they do dry clear.
And that's kind of how I finished that. I backed it onto a bit of blue card and onto a white card panel. I'm so grateful you joined me tonight for some Saturday night crafting. I hope to see you again tomorrow night for my half-an-hour crafting slot. And thank you for joining me. Take care. Bye.